Okay, well, good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining the webinar. It is titled Paid Media, It's Less Expensive Than Failure. My name is Tom Masloom. Let me say right off the bat that sarcasm is one of my love languages. I don't mean to offend anybody, and the title of this obviously is made tongue-in-cheek, but there's some seriousness behind it that I'd like to go through with you today. What my goal for today is to walk you through where paid media should fall within your marketing, advertising, and branding plans, how to get there and structure a good media plan, and how to get over the hurdles that most nonprofits have in spending money on something like, advertising. A little background on me and my company. Again, my name is Tom Masloom. I'm gonna go ahead and put my name up here. This is my email address, tom@m.network. We're going to try to get to everybody's question. I'm going to ask you to go ahead and write them. Joining me for this is my colleague, Danny. She's on the line and she'll interrupt me periodically to ask me questions that you guys type in. If I don't get to a question, there'll be a Q&A period at the end. If I still don't get to a question or you don't want to ask the question in this, go ahead and write me. I'll try to get to every single buddy and every single question who asked me a question on my email. I'll write you back. Just give me some time to get to it, okay? All right, my company is the M Network. We're known as the good guy company here in town. We're a branding and advertising strategic communications firm. We deal in the nonprofit sector, obviously. We deal in government clients and government agencies. Education, higher education. Healthcare is another one of our specialties, among others. We have some retail clients, but we're not generally in that sphere. Some of our clients that we work with locally is the Miami Foundation, obviously, the Knight Foundation, Children's Services Council, Homeless Trust, and Neighbors for Neighbors. In fact, some of my clients may be on this webinar. If you are and your logo is not on the screen, I am sorry. Please don't write me. I know, I just wanted to give an example of the types of people that we work with. Because we're so broad and we work through government agencies and we work with healthcare and we work with national clients as well as local clients, we're able to pull a lot of best practices. And I like to share those best practices. And I'm gonna lead with one of those best practices because I want to get a feel for whether or not I'm gonna go down this road. And let me tell you about an organization that we ran into when working with the Homeless Trust. And if you go ahead in your chat window and raise your hand or type a yes or a no if you're interested, Danny will cue me on and we'll answer some questions about them. Let me tell you about them and let me see if this interests you. One, this is an organization who works off almost no budget, a super thin, razor thin budget. Yet despite that fact, they still get their message in front of their target audience almost daily. They are relentless. They're in front of their target audience on a daily basis with a clear, concise message. Every single day, they have verifiable results that their message is penetrating. In fact, they have abandoned the large dollar donor entirely and solely focus on the small dollar donor. But they do it in such volume that in the course of a year, collectively, they might bring in about $40 million, according to most studies. They are persistent, they're every day, and at the end of every day, they know their results. Is this something that you would like to learn more about and learn how they get to these types of results? I'm gonna go ahead and assume yes. So let me introduce you to who I'm talking about. Panhandlers. Panhandlers are the most tenacious of all marketers. They focus all of their energy on outdoor marketing, on billboards that they hold in front of their target audience every single day, 365 days a year, and they get results. In fact, we commissioned a study not too long ago on just how much money is given to panhandlers, and it was about $40 million a year in nickels, dimes, and quarters going out on the streets of South Florida, which is rather amazing. Now, I've just said two things that you should be aware of. One, I said that panhandlers are better at marketing than you are. Remember, sarcasm is my love language. I'm just being cheeky on this. But you have a lot more resources than panhandlers, and you can close that gap as long as you understand the role that the various different media at your disposal plays in building a marketing plan. Now, while today we're going to focus on paid media, I want to run through the different media types quickly so that we understand where paid media falls. So the types of media. You may have sat in on Matthew Beatty's webinar on owned media. So owned media is a type of media. It's also the bullseye. Every single media plan or marketing plan you design should start with owned media. What are the media channels that I own? I own my website. I own my email blasters, my email list. If you don't have a well-managed email list, start today. Social media channels, brochures, collateral material, your events, these are all things that you own wholly and you control. You control all of the content and you control all of the context that your owned media has. Owned media is really, really good at connecting with your loyalists, people who already know your organization, already are engaged, and already want to help you. You can use your owned media to mobilize these people for various different events, volunteer opportunities, and to go back to them for donations. Cool? All right, the second rung on that list is earned media. Earned media is exactly as it sounds. It's media that by the nature of your organization or the importance of your story, you've earned on somebody else's channel. Now, earned media will include public relations, influencers and bloggers and podcasters, media partnerships, guest commentator or guest contributor opportunities. These are all very, very good ways of you guys getting out in front of an audience that you may or may not be able to get in front of very often. So when we look at that, we think to ourselves, how do we entice them to come put us on their media channels? Now, while you're broadening out who you talk to in earned media, a lot of times you lose control of how the story is told, who's telling the story, or even the context in which the story lies. And we'll talk about context in a little while. Then the last rung on the outside of that is paid media. And this is where we're gonna focus a lot of our time today. I would encourage you guys, if you can, take a screenshot of this slide. I'll be asking you to do that periodically through the course of this webinar, so that as we're talking through, I'll just say, hey, I'm gonna leave this up for a little while, take a screenshot. So you have sort of a building block of a media plan on paid media, earned media, and owned media, knowing that you're building the plan from the inside out. You start your marketing with, what do I own? You move to, what can I earn? And then you finish it off with, what do I need to pay for? And paid media is, well, as you would imagine, anything that you pay for. It's traditional advertising, billboards, TV, radio, direct mail, what have you. Digital, that's digital display ads, paid content, boosted on social media or paid content on social media. There's sponsorship opportunities, content placement, and a host of other things. So that's sort of your baseline. Which one of these is right for you? The answer is all of them. Every single one of them should be considered when building any campaign or long-term marketing strategy. You need to be looking at all three of them. This is another slide. I'm going to give you another slide to look at. You might want to take a picture of it. This is a nice, decision-making hierarchy slide to show you where they slot in. And let's talk through it a little bit. I'm going to spend some time on this. So it may not be the clearest. Owned media is in black, earned media is in gray, and paid media is in red. And we've broken it down into things you should be considering along the bottom. The reach, who does it reach? The frequency, how often will the people you reach see or hear the message? The actual control over the message itself, and control over context, and trust. So those are all things you should keep in mind when you're building out your marketing plan and deciding which tactics to deploy through which media. So you could see that when it comes to reach, your owned media is really, really good at getting your existing followers, the people who already know you. But it's not really fantastic at getting a new audience, building your audience out from where you already are. And you can see that earned media does a pretty good job at building that, but nothing quite gets the new audience like paid media, because you're scalable, you're targetable. You could find these people wherever you want to. And then on the other side of that, when you go to the existing audience, listen, earned media is still great, paid media sort of falls off a lot because these people are followers, they're already on your owned media platform. Similarly with frequency, you could see that owned media does slightly better than earned media. The reason why those are down is because in earned media, say a publication covers your story, they're gonna cover it once. You're gonna get one bite at that apple. You're not gonna get more than once, too many times. Owned media, once you post it, people have seen it, your loyalists understand they're not gonna come back again to see it again. In fact, they might stop looking after a while. But paid media, you could keep peppering people. It's a passive thing. We're throwing that out there. Plus, there's a lot of venues for it. I've seen it on TV, and then I heard it on the radio, and then I drove past a billboard on my way into work. So paid media certainly has the frequency advantage on all of these. When it comes to controlling the message, nothing controls your message like the ones that you own. You own your own channels, so you control what goes there. You can make sure that the message is exactly the way you want it. When you work with earned media, you're relying on somebody else to tell your story, and so you've lost a bit of control over the story or the messaging that you want. And paid media, obviously you're buying it, so you own it. The issue with that, though, is in this controlled environment, most paid media is brief. You're gonna buy, 30 seconds on a TV station, 60 seconds on a radio station, the time it takes somebody to drive past a billboard at 60 miles an hour. Similarly with context, you know exactly where your owned media is gonna land. You know every single aspect about it. With earned media, you don't know what story is gonna come before and what story is gonna come after. Paid media, you have some control, but not the control of your owned media. And our final bucket is trust. And trust is super important when it comes to the impact of messages and whether people are going to be swayed by your message into action. So when you look at that last triad of bars all the way on the right-hand side of your screen, you see that earned media has the benefit of having what amounts to be a third-party endorsement. Somebody else is telling your target audience how awesome you are. Whereas your owned media and your paid media are good, but it's coming from you. And so there's only so much that's going to sway people who may or may not already have that trust in you. This might be a good stopping point to find out if we have any questions or comments out there. Danny, is there anything going on in the chat window that we should address?
Nope, not so far.
Wow, it's a lively audience. All right, so let's move down the list here. How many of you have seen or heard this when talking about paid media? Every dollar spent on advertising is a dollar we're not spending on services. This might be, in some variation, the single most frequent quote I get when talking about paid media. Because of that, it gets very difficult for nonprofits to gain any market share of value when going into paid media because they're just not spending the dollars. In the blurb about this, you may have read that a company like Disney spends $2 billion on paid media, and the top nonprofits spend a fraction of that. And so it should be no wonder that Disney has far more traction among your target audience than you do. The question is, how do we get over that? How do we get over that hurdle? More importantly, when we're talking about numbers like this, where do we find these budgets, right? So budgeting is a huge issue. So when we look at budgeting for paid media, it could be very expensive, right? If I was gonna, in this market, just take this market, if I was gonna do a 2-week schedule on Channel 7, I might be looking at a $20,000 investment. If I was gonna do that same 2 weeks on targeted cable, I'm gonna buy Comcast, I might be looking at somewhere close to 10 grand. A week on radio or underwriting, maybe 4 grand. And so those budgets get tricky because oftentimes the grants that fund your organizations don't allot for marketing. There's not a marketing budget in there, so you have to be clever. Some ways you could think about of getting a budget is asking donors specifically for donations for advertising. I know that sounds like a slippery slope. I'm going to show you a little bit later when we do an example how that might work, but log that in the back of your heads for a moment and just think about that for a second. Another thing that you might want to think about is corporate partnerships, specifically for advertising. There is tremendous value in a retail advertiser coming on the air in one of their paid spots saying, "Hi, I'm Tom Mazloom. I own the M Network, and I'm proud to be a supporter of XYZ charity. XYZ charity helps XYZ people all throughout the county. And as a business owner in this county, I appreciate that. So I'm encouraging you to support them too. And every dollar you bring to me, I'm going to give 10% to them," or whatever. Those partnerships exist, and they're very, very powerful. You could structure them however you want. And it might make sense to go to your corporate partners who you already have and start talking about them. If you don't have corporate partners, this gives you something to start that conversation with. Even if it ends up being a co-op, we'll pay 50% of the advertising, you pay 50% of the advertising, you get to advertise your company, we get to advertise your support for us, and you get to encourage other people to support us. That becomes pretty powerful, and it allows you to get that stepping stone to start paying for this. And the advertising schedule can be thin. It doesn't have to be millions and millions of dollars, but you have to start somewhere because it's the best way to build out that audience. Let's take a look at a paid budget and how much you should be spending, because I know that's a big ticket item. And this is the slide that I put up and everybody gasps at. So I know that's going to happen, and then I want you to inhale, and then we'll talk more about it. How much should your organization be spending on marketing? Let's not talk paid, on marketing. Okay, everybody inhale. If you are a brand new organization or an organization that is not well established or an organization that is trying to grow support outside of your loyalists, you're looking at the upper end of those numbers. If you've been around for a while and you're well established, you can hedge closer to the lower end. But 12 to 20% of the gross revenue of your organization should be given to your marketing budget. And then that could be divided between earned, owned, and paid media. Now, let me put this in perspective. The Catholic Church asks for 10%. It's kind of the same thing, okay? So, how do you get there? How do you change your thinking about that? From the every dollar that we spend on advertising is a dollar we're not spending on services. Well, I would strongly encourage you to start thinking about communications as a service that you offer. Communications about who you are is critical. It is how people outside of your organizations are going to learn about you and are going to come to you. And there's a saying, and you might want to write this down. I did not create a slide on it. I wasn't going to put it on the screen. I didn't think about it until just this minute. But there's an old saying in my business that says, if people don't know that you exist, there's a pretty good chance that in time you won't exist. So if people don't know that you exist, there's a pretty good chance that in time you won't exist. And that is pretty self-evident, right? If you're not getting out talking to people, if you're not getting out in front of people who are going to come in and provide donations, take part in your services, volunteer, become employees, support you in various numerous other ways, then your organization is going to struggle. Paid media in this world then is not just about advertising. It's not just, hey, marketing. It's a tool you can use to educate the public, not only about what you do and how they could take part in your services, but how they could support you if what you're doing is important to them. Does that all make sense right now? So once you have a budget, now we could start thinking about how we would build a plan. What does a paid advertising plan look like? So let's talk about that for a little bit. There's a real basic playbook in building an advertising plan. I'm gonna put these up on the screen. They're just a series of questions. We'll talk through them, and then we'll rewind back into them, and we'll do a hypothetical plan. And maybe it'll be helpful so that you can understand how to think through that. The first thing we want to ask is, who are you trying to reach? So are you trying to reach current clients to mobilize them to something, or current supporters, or are you looking for prospective clients or supporters? Are you looking for current donors? Are you looking for major donors, people who are already major donors of yours? Or are you looking for a plethora of small donors? Are you looking for prospective donors? And you could break that up, major and small donors as well. Are you looking to garner volunteers or potential volunteers? Who are the people you're trying to reach? This question becomes really important, and you should start every marketing plan by trying to define that in as minute detail as humanly possible, even if you get down to the point where you're talking about personality traits, right? I am looking for prospective donors who are interested in bowling and work in the retail sector, as fine as you could get it, because once you start doing that, you could start defining how you're going to reach them, right? So step one, who are you trying to reach? Step two, what do you want them to do? This is going to really shape what media you choose to buy. Do you want to mobilize them to volunteer to something? Do you want them to come out to your event? Do you want them to donate to your cause? Do you want them to write their congressperson or policymaker in support of some lobbying effort or policy agenda that you have? Again, when it comes to paid media, your time is fairly brief. The time that you pay for gets exponentially more expensive the longer it goes. So you want to hone that message in what you want them to do as, no, just, I want them to donate and to volunteer. No. I want them to donate, or I want them to write their congressman, or I want them to wear red on Saturday. Whatever it is, pick one thing that you want them to do and stick with it. We'll talk about that in a little bit because we'll talk about that when we talk about creative. The media buy and the creative, they're interlocked and we have to consider them both at the same time, but we'll get to that in a minute. So there's another thing that when we think, what do we want them to do, that most advertisers skip. What do they want from you? And this is a nuanced question, right? This is a question that isn't very easy to answer without asking them. And I would encourage you, in fact, I would implore you, you don't have to do a scientific study, but you should be asking your target audiences, your various target audiences, this question on a regular basis, even if it's just informally. How are we doing? What would you like to see from us? So if we're talking about an advertising campaign or marketing campaign designed to get donations, most donors want to know that you are capable and professional and can do what you say you're doing, and they want to feel good about themselves and feel as if they are taking part in transforming the world around them in positive ways. There may be other motivations, but that one, those certainly rise to the top of the list, right? So what do they want from you? And then once you have that, you could ask the question, what are the best ways to reach them? And you'll notice at bottom, I say channel and message. What are the best ways to reach them? The channel is what media platform? Is it a traditional model? Is it a digital model? Is it earned media? Is it owned media? If it's owned media, is it your email? Are they reading that? Is it social media posts? Once you should ask them that too, as you talk, what do you want from them? Hey, how do you get most of your information about the stuff that you're interested in, the ways you want to change the world, right? This is really, this becomes a dialogue. And you could start with your current donors and your current supporters. And even if you have providers, downline providers, you could ask them as well. So let's do an example. Let's just make something up, and we'll take about 15 minutes for this. We'll come to some conclusions, and then I'll wrap back around with questions. If there's any questions now, Danny, you might as well interrupt me. Otherwise, I'm just going to plow through the rest of this this webinar rather quickly.
Nope, you can go ahead.
Wow. I'm either that boring or everybody is just, I've answered every question ahead of time, which is doubtful. So let's do an example, right? Using that. Who are we trying to reach? I'm going to go ahead and do I'm going to do the obvious. So we're coming up on Give Miami Day. My organization is a foster care organization, for lack of a better one. You insert whatever there that you prefer. And so Give Miami Day is really a focus on really 18 to 34, maybe 18 to 40 folks, younger in age than the typical donor, usually low dollar donors. And by low dollar, I mean 25 to 50 bucks. And so and in this case, I said foster care, right? So I'm interested in reaching a younger donor than I normally reach with a low dollar donation who's interested in foster care or has or can be made interested in foster care. All right, what do I want them to do? I want them to take part in Give Miami Day, and I want them to give 25 to 50 bucks. If they give more, that's bonus, but that's really what I'm trying to do. Now, if you're going to do this campaign on digital or social, you could actually click those filters when you're looking for that audience and figure out how to go to. If you're going through traditional media, if we decide what media channel we're going to do, and it's going to be traditional media, you could look into those radio station, TV station, what have you, into their demographics and get pretty darn close to this. They have the tools right now. So you can either work directly with the sales department at the traditional media station, or you could hire an agency. When you hire an agency, one of the things that happens, and everybody gets sort of rattled about this, is the agency will typically operate either on a flat fee or on an agency commission. If they're working on the agency commission model, they're getting a commission from the traditional media outlet to place that buy. So if you're going to place a buy for $1,000, they're going to get paid $150. That doesn't mean that you're getting $850 worth of advertising. If the agency's worth their salt, they'll not only get you the $1,000, they'll get you more than $1,000 in value in advertising, and then they will back out that $150 from there. So I wouldn't be too concerned with agency commissions if you're of that mind, if that sort of struck you right then. So we have our target audience. We understand what we want from them. What does this audience want from you? So the Give Miami Day audience has either been giving for a long time, but the idea is we want to recruit more people into it, people who've never given before. So maybe that's another filter we put on who we want to reach: 18 to 34, low dollar givers interested in foster care who have never given to foster care before. So what do those people want? Well, when it comes to philanthropic involvement, people want to know the four things we talked about before, but they want to feel good about themselves. They want to know that they're changing the world in positive ways. So that leads us to ask, how do we reach them? So now we're going to be talking about both the message and the media mix in building out your paid advertising. So what are the best ways to reach them? And I'm riffing here. I don't know. Don't write this down. This isn't like gospel. This is an example just so we have a framework to think through. So I'm going to suggest right now that perhaps we have research that says that the 18 to 34s, low dollar giver, never philanthropic before, who are interested in foster care, are heavy users of Instagram, YouTube, and other online platforms, and they watch news and sports only on television, and they listen to music in their cars. Now we have to start making some decisions. We have to start asking ourselves if we need all of that, or can we condense our buy to just a few of them? Remember, the more we spread out the money, the less frequency on each platform we have, the less units we'll be able to buy. The more we consolidate our buy, the more we could own that particular platform. And in today's world, we are bombarded with ads everywhere we go. We have moved 30 years ago, 20 years ago, even 15 years ago, most paid advertising was built on a reach model. How many people can we reach? Let's just, how many people can we reach and pull back in? That's not what's happened anymore. Most advertising now, your viewer is opt-in. They'll skip your ad, they'll not even look at it. They know when you're advertising. So now the new model is a frequency model. How many times can I reach them across the platform? So I want to consolidate my buy. I don't want to do YouTube and online and music and TV and all. I want to narrow that down. So I can narrow it down hypothetically and suggest that, yes, they listen to music in the car, but oftentimes it's on a streaming platform like Pandora or Spotify or something like that. And now, instead of consolidating, I would be broadening my buy. I don't want to do that. So I'm going to eliminate music. The next part of the decision-making process that I might make is based on context. Is context important? Does it matter where my ad shows up? When you buy, say, digital advertising, digital display advertising, you're essentially buying a bucket of eyeballs. that is what you're doing. It may be on this website, it may be on that website. We don't know about the content on this website. We don't know about the content on that website. Do you care if your ad is showing up on a website that's carrying reprehensible content, say. If you're in the nonprofit world, you probably do. When we buy for our nonprofits, we always specify we don't want to be on certain types of pages that carry certain content. Some of those pages, depending on the campaign, are we don't want to be on heavily partisan politic pages because we don't want our issue or our client to appear political because we don't want to alienate half the audience or the other half of the audience. Even if we're buying traditional media, we want to control the adjacencies, right? We want to control what commercial plays before ours and what after. If we're on AM radio, I don't want to have my nonprofit commercial, my PSA here, and then followed by, you know, Cheetahs, the strip club. I don't want that. So we want to be able to control content. So what does context look like when context goes wrong? Here, I'll show you. Real world examples. Here's a Yahoo News. Coffee might trigger the first heart attack in some. Right next to the Folgers, enjoy a second cup ad. I'm guessing that Folgers is looking for their money back from that one. Yep, Apple spent a ton of money to take over the New York Times, the iPad Air, and there's an awesome, beautiful visual of the diver underwater just above the headline. Malaysia says jet went down in ocean. Yep, that is unfortunate. Fox News, kindergartner sprinkles marijuana over lasagna. Is marijuana really so bad for my child? So you can see the advertisers lost control of context, and it ended up to be probably something, yeah, people are going to talk about their ad, but probably not in the way you want them to talk about it. So for the purposes of this example, and by the way, I'm a huge fan of digital display ads. They are appropriate for a lot of things. I do not take away from this that I just bash digital display and I don't think you should do that. I absolutely think you do. Super powerful, super controllable. You could narrow your budget really down, fine tune your target. So don't take that away. I'm just using this as an example, okay? But for this example, I've eliminated for the context reason. So what did that leave us with? I think it left us with Instagram, YouTube, and a targeted cable buy. So what does the spend look like on that? Instagram is probably $50 a week. Leading up to Give Miami Day, you'll want to do 2 weeks, 3 if you really want to go nuts. $50 a week is about what you'll probably end up spending. So for 2 weeks, it's $100. YouTube, similar, 2 weeks, you're probably $100 a week, so that's another $200. And then you get into the expensive stuff, the targeted cable. You're probably looking at about $5,000 per week, and you're only buying the sports and news channels in this hypothetical. So again, as a hypothetical, I've just come up with a media spend that's about $5,000, $5,300, which should not be a stretch for most of you. You should start getting the good news that, oh, maybe I can afford this, right? Another way to, if you're getting that feeling, to view this is, if you're all getting that and you all spend $5,300 on a media placement, think about how much traction Give Miami Day might actually get. So if 10 different nonprofits spend $5,000 a piece to boost Give Miami Day, which is ultimately going to impact you as well, that's $50,000. Now you have a much more impactful spend. So you might be thinking in your brain right now, who are the other agencies I could partner with? Who can I team up with that has complementary services for an ad buy? And that may be for Give Miami Day. It might be for other initiatives you guys have. So keep that in mind as you're going. I also want to make sure that we're not letting go of content. Remember when I said I want to talk to you about creative? Well, this is that point. Distribution in marketing is king. But content is calm. And so together, when you have them, you have King Kong, okay? So you don't want to go cheap on your content. You don't want to spend all of your money on the bucket of eyeballs and then put something in front of those eyeballs that isn't compelling. So you're going to want some research around that. What does that look like? What are we talking about when it comes to that? So that gets into our question, what are the best ways to reach them specifically with a message? So remember when I said have a conversation with the people, with your target audiences? This is a really good place to start that. Now, we have data, and this might not sound shocking, but I'm going to use part of that as a hypothetical because I don't really know your organization. But in other organizations that are nonprofit oriented, we know that the younger low-dollar donors who are interested in us and haven't been philanthropic before, they want to hear from people who have given before. They want to hear from people who could say really good things about you. They want that third-party endorsement that comes from a testimonial. So how would you get that? Well, we said it was going to be a targeted cable buy, we said it was going to be Instagram, and we said it was going to be YouTube. All of those are video. So you're not producing a ton of other content. You're going to put your money in video. How much does that cost? I don't know, but I put a round number in because I'm not very good at math. But call it $4,000. It depends on really how complex the idea is. Testimonial spots tend not to be complex. So we based this on what we as a company have done in the past for other nonprofits on a very, very slim budget. So where do you get the money for that? Here's one idea, and we love what we lovingly call the bank shot. The bank shot is when we have one campaign running, but it serves more than one purpose. So you probably already have donors that you know that are going to give to you for Give Miami Day. Why don't you go to them now and say, hey, instead of giving to us on Give Miami Day, would you give to us now because we'd like to feature you in a TV commercial encouraging others to give to us on Give Miami Day. Now you have a campaign that you're building that is going to help encourage others, bring in an outside audience who doesn't know you into your fold, and you're going to have a donor relationship campaign. You're going to be able to go to your top donors and show them some love, put them on TV, demonstrate how much you care about them and how important they are for you. So that's why we call it the bank shot. We're doing two things at the same time. This may not be right for your particular organization, or it may, if it works, great, run with it. And the second idea behind this is ROI. We talked about how to get your organization to stop thinking about advertising in terms of an expense and start thinking about it as a larger communication communication strategy that's part of the services that you have. Well, part of this is saying it's a return on investment. Advertising is never a break-even proposition. If I spend $1,000 on advertising, I expect something back from that. It's not just a straight expense. It's $1,000. It's more than $1,000 in donations or services or awareness or goodwill or whatever, however you value it. So you should put that metric on this stuff. So in our example, we're going to spend $10,000 on an advertising campaign to reach people who are giving us $25. That means, simple math, you need $425 donations to simply break even. But we don't want to break even. So what does real ROI look like? I cannot speak for this particular campaign because it's hypothetical, but I could tell you a campaign that we just ran, spent about the same amount of money. It was a very, very deep thin buy only on one radio station. And we know that that buy reached 197,000 people with a frequency rate of close to 3 times. So 197,000 people who listened to this radio station, heard our ad, and heard it multiple times. We love that. So if I was going to quadruple my money in my $10,000 spend, I would need 1,600 donors. Remember I said we need 400 donors to make the 10,000 back. So if we just multiply everything by 4, we've quadrupled the number of donors and we've quadrupled the amount of money we raise. So we're not just bringing 10,000 in, we're bringing $40,000 in now. And if I want to do that, I reach 197,000 people. I need less than 1% of them to actually donate. 0.8 of 1% of everybody who hears the message needs to act on it. Those odds are pretty good. And I'm gonna guess if you went to your donor who gave you the 10 grand to do the advertising and said, you know, Mrs. So-and-so, your spot brought in $40,000 worth of donations. Not only do you have great donor relationship, but you have a great case study, a great proof of performance. And now Mrs. So-and-so might be a lot more willing to give you more or tell her friends to give you more in the future. So when we think about our advertising buy, I think it is common sense to know that advertising works. If advertising didn't work, then the largest companies on the planet wouldn't be doing it. I hope that I've demonstrated today that advertising is actually more affordable than you thought it was. It doesn't take a huge budget to get small impacts. And that to get over that hump of every dollar that we spend on services is a dollar, or on advertising is a dollar that we're not spending on services. To get over that hump, we simply have to take a look at the ROI and say, you know, every dollar that we're not spending on advertising is $4 that we may not be earning to put towards services. So I hope that's helpful. I am happy to take any questions that you might have at this point. I've left about 15 minutes at the end of this, or we could all go to lunch. Totally up to you.
Tom, I'm checking the chat. I don't see any questions. I don't know if people can see there's a little chat button at the bottom. If you click that and hit all panelists, you can send questions to us and we will be happy to respond.
All right, I will put up the questions slide and we'll wait a little bit so that you don't have to look at me. And if you have questions, go ahead and type them in. And if not, we'll wait a little bit and then we'll end.
Oh, it looks like we have a question from Mesut Ozgen. Sorry if I messed up the name. But they asked, do you now consider Facebook ads more towards older generation rather than younger? Tom, you're on mute.
Rookie mistake. That's a great question. When you look at Facebook trending older in its demographic, you look at that as far as in relationship to other media, other social media. So in the social media landscape, Facebook trends in the 40 to 45 age group and even above, whereas Twitter and Instagram trend significantly younger, TikTok even younger. TikTok is almost the teenager group, right? You're looking at an average age, a median age under 23 in that TikTok group. And then you have Instagram, which is essentially your 20s, almost to 30s, which is its sweet spot. And then Facebook trends to the top of that. But if you look at that in terms of traditional media, your 65 plus audience, also in nonprofit world known as your super donor, they're all still watching TV. So it is a relative question, right? If your sole buy is going to be on social media and you want to trend that up, yeah, Facebook's probably your older audience. But if you're looking for an older audience, period, you might want to look outside of social media for the top edges of that.
Oh, we have another question. So, oh, not a question, but very informative. Thank you. And then one under that, how is the advertisement done in TikTok? I am not among the young generation.
TikTok is just starting to have some paid opportunities. It'll appear in feed. It has not taken off a lot yet. They do have a boosted post. When you boost posts in any social media, if you have the option between boosting your post and doing a paid social, I would always take the paid social, by the way. And it's because you can target your audience better. So all of the social media platforms now offer some sort of advertising. How fine the tools are may make a difference in which one you want to go with. You said there was another one, Danny?
Oh, nope, those are all the ones that we have so far.
Awesome.
Also, since we had a couple of questions, oh, there's one more. Do you think radio ads are still very effective, especially among local audiences?
I love radio. One, because radio is effective, but also it's flexible. So not only is there a wide way to go, but you could buy as live ads in which the talent just sort of sounds like they're talking about you. And that in-content advertising combined with the spots that it surrounded become pretty powerful, especially among certain audiences. Plus, I like the fact that radio gives you a connection to your audience in a way that other media don't. They're very engaged. So you get loyalists to radio stations still. Like, there are probably some of you in the audience that you get in your car and that radio station on, and it's only that radio station, or it's that radio station and maybe another radio station, and that's it. So I love radio for how loyal the audience is, the flexibility in the ways I can advertise on radio, and for the connection that my audience can have directly to the talent that they have a bond, a relationship with. So yeah, I think I like radio a lot.
All right, another question on radio. Do you think radio interviews could actually be more effective and free than paid radio ads?
Well, that's a good question. It's loaded in a lot of ways. You're talking about earned media versus paid media. So in the earned media, the interview on radio, you have a great opportunity for third-party endorsement. The radio station, by putting you on the air and interview you, is giving you an opportunity to speak, and they're essentially giving credence to what you're saying. However, it's doubtful that that interview is going to happen more than once. So from a paid standpoint, that paid ad not only bolsters what they heard and reminds them of the interview, but it drives your frequency up. And in a frequency world, in a frequency-based advertising model that we're in right now, I would be very, very hesitant to suggest one or the other. If you recall all the way back at the beginning when I asked, so which one's right for you? That answer still remains the same. All of them should be part of your marketing mix.
So Tom spoke earlier on the difference between a boosted post and doing a paid post on social media through Facebook ads. So I just wanted to clarify the difference, since I know we had a couple of questions on that. So when you do a paid post or a sponsored post on Instagram or Facebook, there's two ways to do it. There's the boost post button, which is the easiest way, and then there's through Facebook Ad Manager. The advantages of doing it through Facebook Ad Manager, which you use to post things on both Facebook and Instagram, is that you can control things more. So you can narrow down your audience further. And like Tom mentioned earlier, instead of just doing it broadly on reach, like we're paying $50 to get 10,000 or 20,000 eyeballs, you can actually narrow down what your metrics are. So instead of eyeballs, you can say, I want 50 clicks or 100 clicks on my link, which tends to be more useful for targeting your audience and for measuring specific things.
All right, well, without any other questions, I'll leave the screen up. If you would like to ask me a question via email, my email is on the screen. It's tom@m.network, and I will get to as many emails as I possibly can.